Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Antonio Banderas testing positive for the coronavirus COVID 19. Now, I saw something where apparently he had make this announcement. It was on his birthday that he had coronavirus. Obviously, a terrible way to have to celebrate one's birthday. I hope that he gets out of this okay, and because coronavirus, of course, can potentially be perilous. I know the mortality rate is not very high, but still, even if you're talking about 1 in 25 or 1 in 30 chance of passing away, it's still, to me, that's still too large of a number to be looking at as far as potentially dying. But my prayers go out to him. I hope he gets out of this okay. The thing about it is one thing that I have that stands out. Okay, he's a sun in Leo and he has a Pisces ascendant, moon in Aries. Now, the thing about this is he has transit right now. The transit sun is obviously very close to his natal sun, being his birthday. So, I mean, so in some cases that could be about physical issues, vitality issues. It could be a time where a person might really have an abundance of energy, and being in Leo, that near inexorable, indefatigable energy. When you're talking about the sun, it is the planet that can shine the light on things. You're talking about, I mean, his own natal sun. I mean, the sun itself in astrology in your chart can be matters connected with the physical body. So, and you're talking about Leo, so it's something, obviously this was on a grand scale, and he also needs to be careful that he doesn't, have any issues Leo related, like something with the heart or the upper back or spine. He may be more susceptible to a stroke. This is, but the thing about it is, looking at his chart, he does have a Pisces ascendant, and Pisces is not known for a robust immune system. I mean, Pisces is the sign. I mean, you're talking about that could be associated with diseases that can't be eradicated or cured. He has transit Neptune in his first house at this time. Neptune, of course, could be about diseases, and Pisces can be about ones that can't be cured or eradicated. The moon in Aries. Now, moon in Aries may have some susceptibility to some symptoms that would be associated with the coronavirus, such as fever and a headache. And Antonio Banderas' chart too. I notice he also has Mars in Gemini, and it squares his ascendant. Mars in Gemini by itself might give physical debilitations and issues associated with the lungs and breathing respiratory issues. The fact that it squares the ascendant, which of course the ascendant is the physical body, obviously doesn't help matters. He also has Neptune in his eighth house in his chart. Now, in some cases, that could be death through through a disease. Another thing too is that the ruler of his eighth house, which is Venus, he has Libra on the cusp of the eighth house. The ruler, of course, is Venus. That is in his sixth house. So in some cases, that could be some death through some kind of debilitating illness. Could also be given. I mean, what I noticed too is that the ruler of his eighth house could be associated with viruses. That ruler Venus is conjunct Pluto in the sixth house, so he is at a little higher risk for dying due to some kind of virus. So it's something to really look at this time. And another thing too is that he does have having the sun. He has the sun conjunct Uranus in his sixth house. Now, in some cases, I mean, the sun conjunct Uranus could add height to a person. I don't know how tall he is. It wouldn't surprise me if he was taller than average. But it could also give some kind of unusual or unexpected illness as well. In this case, when you get the coronavirus, obviously that could be something that could be very unpredictable, to say the absolute least. Another thing too is that the ruler of his sixth house, which is the sun, he has Leo on the cusp of the sixth house. The ruler of it is in the sixth house, so it tells me that issues that could be health related might be more worrisome, and also it's more potential for health issues to impact his daily routine more so than the average person. Having Venus in the sixth house may also give some issues that are associated with the throat, the neck area, or should I say, could be issues with coughing or sore throat. Being in Virgo, of course, it could be more worrisome issues. The fact he's got Pluto conjunct Venus also is an indicator that there's also a chance, if he hasn't had it already, some kind of surgery that could be associated with the throat or the neck area. And you're talking about being in the sign of meticulous Virgo, and the sign associated with dissection as well. Now, some other things as far as transits in his chart that might be tied into this. He's also got one thing I see at this time is that he does have the transit North Node in Gemini is in his fourth house. So when you have a transit like that, it could be, it could be a time where, transit North Node in Gemini can be about having to confront issues that may be associated with the lungs, with the respiratory system, that might impact that latter part of one's life, being the fact that that transit is taking place in his fourth house. Now, another thing that I'm noticing too, looking at his chart, is the fact that transit South Node in Sagittarius is not far from his natal Jupiter. And the thing about it is, when you have a transit like that, when you're talking about the South Node in transit in astrology, it can be about issues something that we're trying to get away from. Now, sadly, this might be the fact that it's closing in on his natal Jupiter. It could be about going away from maybe an over-optimistic or a philosophy. It might be a time where he has to look at things maybe more realistically, be more disciplined, more cautious, being just more of a realist in contrast to being maybe an incorrigible optimist. He has Sagittarius on the cusp of the 10th house, which could indicate a reputation for being the incorrigible optimist. Jupiter being in its dignity in Sagittarius is all fine. That's a very great placement. He has it in the 10th house of his career, though it's not surprising. He has had prodigious success and prosperity in his career, but it's a time where maybe that luck might be starting to go a little bit in the other direction, with the South Node closing in on that natal Jupiter at this time, and it might be forcing him to be a little bit more pragmatic and more about being realistic and practical in regards to issues that he may have to be dealing with, which might impact his career, given that this is in it's in his 10th house. Now, another thing too, looking at his chart at this time, he does have the thing is, he also has at this time transit Venus is in his fourth house, so that could manifest in some cases about some issues with the throat. The neck area could be coughing, sore throat, issues that are hitting him close to home and are going to impact his home life. He's obviously going to be at a time right now where he's likely going to have to be even more introverted than usual. Pisces rising, that could be in itself more, as far as his outward, is what he's projecting outwardly, what he may want, may be more about isolation anyway than the typical Sun in Leo. and it's going to be a time where he might be a little bit more, even more reclusive, more so now than ever due to this situation. Uh, there's really not much more I had to say about this than really, and as far as looking at his chart and natal placements, transits that might be tied in with him getting this coronavirus, it's just terrible that we're still dealing with this on such a strong level, especially in the United States right now. But there's really not much more I had to get into as far as his natal chart and transits that might be tied in with him contracting the coronavirus. I just hope he gets out of this relatively unscathed and it's not a perilous situation. So, and it just goes to show you, again, not to be redundant with this, and I've said this in previous videos, that nobody, it reminds us that nobody is impervious or invincible to anything, and whether it's the coronavirus, whether it's a flu, whether it's general colds, there are people that, and practically anybody can get anything at any time. And the thing about this is, again, he also, having transit Neptune in his first house can be about really the dissolving, in some cases, dissipation of the energy and the vitality at this time. And really, this again, there's not really much more for me to say about this than what I've already said, and I just hope that he gets out of this sooner than later. Well, one last thing is that it looks like it's at least a loose inconjunct between his natal Mars and natal Neptune. And when you're talking about inconjuncts in astrology, they can often be about health related issues. And you're talking about Mars in Gemini, of course, as I stated before, can be about physical debilitations, issues that can be associated with the respiratory breathing system and also the lungs. And Neptune in Scorpio, even though it's generational by itself, can be about diseases that might be something connected with a virus that can be potentially perilous. Since we're talking about Scorpio energy, and you're talking about and it is at the very least a loose inconjunct aspect between his Mars and Neptune. He also has the transit Neptune at this time is at least making a loose inconjunct aspect to his natal Sun. And you're talking about when Neptune isn't involved, when you're talking about inconjuncts in astrology, again, they can be about health-related issues. Neptune in Pisces can be about diseases that can't be eradicated or cured, and it might even be affecting that near inexorable, indefatigable Leo Sun energy. But keep in mind, he also has a Pisces ascendant, so it tells me that his constitution, his physical health, immunity to things like this is a lot weaker than the typical Sun in Leo. I'm sure his vitality and energy level in general is going to be weaker than the typical Sun in Leo. And he also has the fact that transit Neptune is in his first house, certainly not helping matters at this time. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.